Today I'm going to show you how to make this board for under $30. I'm going to walk you through all of my tips and tricks for where to shop, what to look for when you're shopping, as well as how to design the board so it looks like it's a much more high-end, expensive board. So I did all of my shopping for this board at Market Basket. It is the closest grocery store here. I love Market Basket, but you can also shop at lower end or budget-friendly grocery stores. Places like Aldi or bigger box stores often have really good rates on certain things. You may have to shop around a little bit more than you would at a more high-end place that's specialized in charcuterie, but you can often find a lot of the same things for much less. The next thing is you want to prioritize what you buy. So you want some special things, but you don't need to get, if you have a pack of salami, you probably can find that for $5 or $6 as opposed to the $30 fancy high-end salami. So do your work, try to figure out what you can get budget, and I'm going to show you exactly what I found today in Market Basket. The next thing you can do is you can get creative with your charcuterie board design so that you can make a little bit look like it's more. One trick I like to use in this board is I took a block of cheddar cheese, I cut it 3 different ways, and it looks like 3 different types of cheeses on my board. And so that there's no reason that your $30 board can't look as nice or as fancy as someone who spent $70 on the board. So I encourage you to get creative. And I'm going to walk you through first the grocery shopping part of this, and then we're going to go back here and we're going to put the board together. If you don't already like and subscribe, please do. I also have a couple other videos where I go to specific grocery stores and I try to make a charcuterie board with just ingredients from that shop for under $50. So I will be totally open about what I spend on those boards so you can get a sense of what you will find at the different grocery stores. All right, let's get started. So we're in Market Basket, and I am just going to show you what I found in terms of prices and ingredients. So I'm looking specifically for a couple types of fruit, some crackers, some cheese, some meat, and then maybe something sweet and salty. So your prices are going to be different depending on where you're shopping, but I definitely encourage you to find things that are kind of close to resembling some of the higher end things, but they aren't always the most expensive. If you can, getting a variety pack of things is always a good idea. I love adding some olives. That makes it kind of fancy. And I'm going to get a block of cheddar cheese. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in the video later. Chocolate to make it sweet. And just some preserves to add a dip and make it kind of fun. So this was my haul. This is what I got. And this was for just almost exactly $30. So I'm actually going to take this block of cheddar cheese and I'm going to cut it into 3 separate sections. And for each of those sections, I'm going to cut it differently. So for this one, I'm going to make wedge blocks of cheese. And so I just cut it kind of on a diagonal, and I'm going to get my little pieces here and I'm just going to cut them. This is just going to be one design tactic to make this cheese look like it's 3 different types of cheeses just by cutting it differently. So I've got my little wedges here, and I'm then going to take those wedges, and if you alternate, so you take them, I'm going to try to show you here, but you alternate the part of the triangle, you get this really fun row of cheese. And I'm going to be able to put that directly on the board, and that is going to be one of my 3 different cheddar cheese designs. So let's just go ahead and I'm going to take the whole thing and put it on the board over here. As I build the board, I'm going to be putting them in place that I think I want them to go, but don't be afraid to move them around down the road. All right, so for my next block of cheese, I am just going to make this into some cubes. So I'm going to cut the cheese. You want to make sure your cubes are the right size that someone can pick up the cube and put it on a cracker, and it's not so much cheese that it's overwhelming the amount of cracker you have. So I like to make my cubes a little bit smaller. Also, if you're trying to save money, the smaller you make them, it's going to give kind of a better visual appeal on the board and look like more cheese. So I have my little cubes here, and I'm just going to place these on the board. And I want to put them somewhere farther away from the row of cheese I already have up there. All right, so for my final cheese, I am just going to cut some slices of the cheese itself. Now I'm going to take that cheese and I'm just going to place it kind of in an angle in a row along the charcuterie board. And if you notice, I have the 3 different pieces of cheese or 3 different types of cheese for my cheddar put in different parts of the board. So they're not right next to each other where it's obvious that they're the same kind of cheese. And then I have my goat cheese on here as well. You could split the goat cheese up in half and put it on different parts of the board too, just to make that look like it has even more cheese on the board. Next, I'm going to place some of the crackers on the board. And these are going to take up a lot of space for the price, so I always like to put a lot of extra crackers on there. You know, looking at this board, it would have been nice if I had gotten some crackers that were a little bit of a different color, just because it's kind of similar to the cheese. But let's go ahead and put the salami on, because that's going to add a lot of color as well. I also have a video where I go into how to fold salami, but I'm going to fold salami in a couple different ways. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of a row of salami, or what's called a salami chain. So to do this, you're going to fold it into 4 parts, fold it in half and then in half again, and then you're just going to nestle each piece into the one before it. So I'm going to fold it again and then stick it in there. And this is just such a fun way to serve salami and really does elevate or look a lot fancier. In general, you can just put these chains right on the board, but I do like to put them next to a bowl just to help it kind of stay up a little bit better. There we go. And then you can build more than one of these. You can just make one really long row of them, but you can see how bright the salami is in terms of color, in terms of breaking up the white that I have on the board already. Just like with the cheese, I'm going to fold my salami in different ways. So for this next salami, and this is out of that 3-pack I had, I'm going to take each piece and I'm just going to roll it up. And this is just one way that you can make a salami flower or salami rose. So I'm just folding them in half and then putting them around the outside of my rose. And I'm trying to show you here while doing it beneath me. And this just makes a pretty little flower. I do like these types of roses just because they're really easy to make. They don't always stay up on the board when you put them down, so you can use a toothpick to put them through the side. It just makes it harder to serve that way. So I like to do this, and then what I'll do is I'll just kind of nestle it up against a bowl or some other element on the board itself. You want to do this without making them too tight, because it just makes them prettier, but you can see how they do fall apart a little bit on this board. So I'm just going to wedge it in here a little bit, and there we go. For the next kind of salami, I'm going to make a flower in a different way. So I'm just going to lay all the salami out along kind of in a row. And you can use, I would say, 7 or 8 pieces is good. You could do it with more. It's just going to get a little bit cumbersome. You then fold the whole row up in half, and then you're just going to roll the salami rows up from one of the ends. This tends to stay together a little bit better than the other flower that I made, and just you can see it looks a little bit different from the top. But again, I'll wedge it against something just to make it a little bit more stable. You can, again, use a toothpick. There we go. So I still had a little bit more salami, so I'm going to make one more salami design. And for this, I am just going to make a kind of a row or a layer of salami. I never like to put salami on just the way it comes out of the package. It's always good to break it up, fold it in half, and then you can just place it on the board. So let's see. I'm going to put it over here where I'm going to build around that piece. Okay, now we're going to move on to some of the other ingredients that are pretty easy to put on the board itself. So we'll start with the peanuts. If you got peanuts, you could also use a mixed nut. Anything that is a good deal at the store tends to be what I like to put on the board itself. And so for peanuts, you can do a couple things. You can put them in a bowl. You can also just pour them onto the board itself. And, if you're moving the board around a lot, I'm putting my peanuts on the outside of the board, but they're going to fall off if you have to carry this board a lot. So just be aware of that. Grapes, for this board, I kept my grapes kind of a dark color. Green grapes also work fantastic, and they're a really good filler. I really like putting something sweet on the board. So for this board, I'm adding just a little chocolate, and this chocolate actually has caramel in it. I'm going to go ahead and break it up and put it on the board kind of in a big clump. The caramel is good. It just ended up getting a little bit messy. So if I was doing this again, I probably would have steered clear of the caramel and just done maybe a salted chocolate or a chocolate with nuts in it. Next, we're going to put in some of our preserves. So I got a fig jelly or jam for this. And I'm just I already have my bowls there ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and put the jelly right in the preserves right in the bowl. And then for the other bowl, I am just going to put our olives in there. You could also use pickles or some other salty thing, but the olives just really are kind of a traditional for a charcuterie board, so they really make it nice if you're trying to make it look a little bit more expensive. Another thing to keep in mind as you're building your board is how people are going to eat this board. So, a lot of the cheese on this board is cut up into small pieces, but things like the olives and even some of the meat would be hard to pick up unless you're using your fingers. So for this board, I would probably serve it with some toothpicks or a serving spoon or fork. Once I have all the ingredients on the board itself, I'm just going to go back in and fill in some of the gaps just to make the board as full as possible. And if you still want a couple tips and tricks for making this board even fancier looking, I would definitely recommend getting some edible flowers or herbs and using those on the corners that you have kind of still left empty. You can always go back in and fill those with more grapes or more, crackers or things like that. But a few little flowers or herbs really take the board to the next level. So for this board, I have a couple marigolds that are just at my house already. And so I'm going to use those on the board just to kind of add that little extra flair, just like that. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed making this board with me today. Have fun making your own board, and I'll see you here next time on Amazing Charcuterie Boards.